Hello YouTube, I am Lightly Salted and welcome back to the channel. And welcome back to UBoat. With B-128 landing on the unstable branch in the very near future, I'm trying to put my how-to hat back on. And I thought I'd go ahead and address some of the requests I've had to talk a little bit about crew management. Now we touched on this a little bit when B-127 came out. If you want to go ahead and check the upper right of your screen, you can definitely take a peek at that. I thought this time we'd get a little farther into it. Now, quick disclaimer on that, your mileage may vary. Everybody has a different way that they'd like to set their boat up. They have a different way of how they would like it to work. So again, this is just going to be a basic, how do we make it work in the first place, and what I think may be the more optimum settings. In my personal playstyle, I choose to leave crew management completely off. I don't like to use it. I also tend to lobotomize my crew. I delete the values of things I do not ever want them to do, rather than just set them to lower or higher priorities. I prefer to micromanage my boat as we carry on. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive on in. We'll speak to our recruitment officer in the first place. This is a fresh game. So the first thing we've got to do is make sure we've got a full complement on board. We'll go ahead and add these 2 sailors, get us up to a full 18. Now let's jump into the management itself. So you'll see by default we do have the morning, evening, and night shift. We have the task loadout for our basic leadership types. The schedule. So you'll see here that the morning shift is set to be free for the vast majority of its day and to work here in the middle. So green is work, red is free, purple is anything. They could be sleeping, they could be doing some R&R, or they could be working as well. So by default, you're left with these 3 shifts, and that's fine. You have access to your crew, of course. So let's concentrate on our sailors. So we're going to go ahead and click the sailor hat. And as you can see, the game gives you a default loadout. They believe that working engines is a 9 for priorities, 7 for observation, 3 is for cleaning, so on and so forth. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept already, the higher the number, the higher the number, the higher the priority. So as it stands right now, your ordinary crew see the engines as absolute top priority, and that's good. However, a lot of this is not optimal, the way they have this laid out. For instance, currently, none of your ordinary crew have any values for working the valves. So if you give the order to drop down to periscope depth or to blow the tank, so on and so forth, none of your ordinary crew are actually designated to do that, so only your officers will be performing that task. We also have a 6 in place for using the observation periscope. Anybody who's familiar with my previous videos and my personal gameplay, I absolutely cannot stand it when ordinary crew are blocking me from using the observation periscope. So with this value of 6, there will pretty much always be somebody using it if you are underwater. Now, this gets very, very annoying because if you, say, choose one of your... let's say you choose your chief bosun and you want him to work the periscope, you will not be able to use it because someone else is using it. And that's just so very irritating. So what I would recommend, and again, this is all up to your playstyle, I would go ahead and turn these to 0, in all honesty. So we just... hit the 0, it goes away completely, hit the 0, it goes away, so on and so forth. This is not actually all that useful of a thing. If you, say, set one of your officers to the navigation table, they do not require someone to be on this in order for your navigation to keep rising. That may change in later builds, but as of right now, this is just not useful other than blocking you when you want to use the observation periscope. I would also recommend turning your depth steer station down to, say, 5s, just to make it more of a lower priority, and change these, your valves, to 6s. That should help with every time you give the command for the boat to drop. With any luck, your sailors will be jumping on that right away. We're going to turn cooking down to 3, just because, well, realistically, somebody is always going to be cooking, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. We'll turn cleaning down to 2s. It's honestly not all that important. It helps with discipline a little bit, but overall, it's not really going to be in your face all that much. We do want helmsman to be fairly high, because, well, you have to steer, and the lower of a priority you set for this, the less control you're going to have over the boat. Observation is very, very important. Maybe not so much on the night shift, though. So you might want to make a call there as to what numbers you want to plug in. In the morning and evening, observation is going to be very, very important. But if, say, you have darker nights turned on, you may not want to consider using it at all for the night shift. Something else to remember is the way the shifts are set up, you only have access to 6 personnel per shift with this default. So let's say, for sake of argument, you have your skipper doing observation using the UZO. You give him 2 sailors to increase your sight range. So 2 are being used. You put 2 on your engines to help out your chief engineer, and you put 2 on, say, the navigation table to help your navigation officer keep you nice and not lost. Well, you are out of bodies. There's no one left. So no one will be cleaning, no one will be cooking, no one will be operating the helmsman station or the depth steers, so on and so forth. It's not a perfect system, honestly. Even when I've used all the available sailors, there still seems to be more sailors working, and I don't really understand the mechanic behind it. If somebody knows, go ahead and hit me up down in the comments. But currently, the numbers don't really seem to matter all that much, which is very, very strange to me. So I would recommend this as a more default loadout, personally. Again, your mileage may vary. I'm just letting you know that you can change these values. You can also increase them. So you can put your mouse here, click this. You can change, if you click in front of the 8, you can actually plug in a 1, and you can make that 18. The game somehow still registers it as a priority. I don't really understand, again, how the programming has worked out. But just be aware that you can go, well, can we make it a 28? How about, there you go, there. So now this is a 28 when it comes to priority. So, again, using management is not really my gig. I don't like a set and forget kind of both. And I feel like the system has too many odd little backdoors and flaws and exploits for me to really recommend it. But I'm just letting you know what's possible so far. So as you can see here, another example of things not making any sense. We have 18 ordinary sailor aboard, but we have 8 sailors loaded per shift. That doesn't make any sense at all. So one would assume you should turn this down to 6 per, right? Because otherwise these numbers don't make any sense. Where the other 2 bodies will come from each shift, I have absolutely no idea. Perhaps they continue working during their free time. Really couldn't tell you. For your officers' tasks, they're set up essentially just based on their jobs, okay? So, as you can see here, the skipper, his first priority is taking care of panicking individuals. Using the UZO is right up there. Navigation coming in at a lowly 3rd place there. And honestly, that's fine. Realistically, there's no real reason to change these if you're just looking for a set and forget kind of boat. The one that I would recommend changing around a little bit is your radio officer. 9 times out of 10, your radio officer is going to be your medic. So if you want to go ahead and throw a 10 in here, because when he is granted that upgrade a little bit later on in his skills, he'll be your medic. So changing him to a 10, just so you don't have to click this one, okay? So if you make him only your medic, he won't care about the radio anymore. You see what I'm saying there? So if you leave him as the radio officer and just throw in a 1, click behind the 1, and put in a 0, he will also be technically your medic at the same time. And you'll see here he gets a little asterisk, and that's because you've changed what the loadout for a radio officer is, okay? There are lots of mods you can use when it comes to your mechanics and their abilities to load and warm torpedoes, or you can just play with it here. So right now, as it stands, if I fired a torpedo at an enemy and Mr. Watcher was currently warming a torpedo, he would stop warming it and jump on reloading the now empty tube. This is a your mileage may vary kind of thing. This is all dependent on your style of play. Personally, I tend to prioritize heating torpedoes over warming torpedoes. So I would say make loading a 5 and make this one a 9. And that's the way I would play it if I was going for a set and forget kind of boat. I want him warming my next salvo before I want him loading out a new tube. Something else to note, My playstyle, I tend to use the Chief Bosun as my gunnery officer. I'll give him the upgrades when it comes to firing and stuff. So you may want to, and if you do play that style, I should say, you may want to consider throwing in like a 5 or something here for resupplying ammunition. So if you keep ammunition down in your stores room like I do, like extra rounds for the deck gun, so on and so forth, if you're not currently using the gun and he's not navigating, he might take the time to go ahead and reload your gun for you. It's just, again, one of those set and forget kind of gigs. If that's the way you play, this could come in handy. Now, squads is a different kind of animal altogether. By default, the morning shift should have now 6 sailors because we changed that. You can add specific sailors to the shift. I don't really understand why you would want to do that. Like, maybe if you're the type of player that renames every single officer on your boat, every single sailor on your boat, and you sort of play it like a story style or a campaign style, then maybe you want very, very specific sailors working, say, the morning shift. I'm just going to tell you that it's possible. I don't really see a point in it. It seems very, very tedious to me, but that's just me. You'll also note that when you give helpers to your officers, say your captain is using the UZO, you add 2 officers to him, everything's great. Or you can add specific sailors to follow him around all the time. So let's say I wanted Schmidt and Schneider to be the captain's sort of attaché. Then these 2 sailors are always going to be hanging out with the skipper, unless you tell them to go away. So by default, you can see here, he now has the ability to have these 2 helpers, and they should be Mr. Schmidt, and that's Alwyn Peters. So again, I don't take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me because according to what, it's Dieter Schmidt twice. That's why. Mr. Schneider. There we go. So now it should be Schneider and Schmidt. It is Peters and Schneider. Let's go ahead and kick them off, and if we put them back on, now it's Schmidt and Schneider. So there you go. You can actually add specific ones. You just have to sort of pay attention to who you're adding. Don't add the same person twice. I think it's kind of ridiculous that the game allows you to add the same person twice, but there you go. So if you want them to have a personal attaché, you can. You can see here Mr. Hagnow is actually reloading the gun. We gave him that 5 in his taskings list to reload the deck gun. And he's gone ahead and taken it upon himself to start doing that. So, just proof that it works. So that's the basics, right? That's it in a nutshell. This is how this all tends to work. And it's up to you to decide, when is your skipper working? When is your first officer working? So on and so forth. You can leave it at anything. You could set it to always free. You could set it to always work. It's really your call. You could put them to bed when you choose to put them to bed. Or you can just ignore all of it, honestly, and turn off this management system altogether. Again, it really depends on your playstyle. If you're the kind of person who just wants to leave the dock, get to the hunting ground, sink some boats, get back, no problem. The boat will basically take care of itself. If you're like me, I tend to like to play it. I want the skipper to be doing stuff at the absolute crack of dawn, and I want him to stop using the UZO right at dusk. And I want my Chief Bosun always married up time-wise with my chief engineer to maximize my fuel consumption. If we're heading into a place where I think I might need my radioman, I don't want him on shift doing something when I should be resting him in order to use him a little bit later on. You know what I mean? So again, it's all up in how you play. Getting a little more advanced into it, we can go ahead and delete these shifts. We could say, get rid of all of them. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. So maybe we don't want 3 shifts of 6 people. Let's add a shift. This will be days. Let's go ahead and give them some values. 9, 7, say maybe 3. Actually, let's make that 2, 3, nothing. Let's make that an 8, a 5, a 6, and a 4. How about that? Okay, so that's our day shift. The name went away. That's weird. And nights. Okay. Alright, and let's go ahead and give them some values. Probably just the same ones. Something to the tune of this. Okay. So now we have 2 different shifts. Let's give them a schedule. So days will work from, let's say, 5 in the morning till 5 at night, give or take. That's when they will work, like so. And we'll have night shift work these ones. You can change this to red for free time, or you can change it to anything time. If the sailors are tired, they'll go to bed, and if you need them, they'll stay up and work. So, yeah. Right? So now that we've got the schedule plugged in for them, days and nights, you can go back to tasks and go to save preset. You absolutely have to save the preset. I don't know why, but there you go. Go ahead and add 9 sailors per shift, like so. So at least with this loadout, you would have 9 sailors per shift, and you'd have a little bit more to work with. I don't know if it might even break your game, in all honesty. Things get super weird from time to time. I really don't know why. Again, this is not the most stable build. So yeah, we've got that locked in for 2 shifts of 9 personnel working 12 hours instead of 3 shifts of 6 working 8 hours. And there you go. Yeah. So that's management in a basic idea. I don't really, I can't give you an optimum way of using this, to tell you the truth, because I don't like it. It's not how I play. So this is your basic idea on how this all works, and a basic idea of the priority list. The priority list took a little bit of figuring out, took me some time. So yeah, that's how that goes. I'll go ahead and show you the way I do things, if anybody out there is more into my style of play. So give me a second here and I'll set that up. Okay, and here we are in a fresh game with enhanced management turned off. This is my way of playing. So if we go into all this junk, the squads don't make any sense. It doesn't really matter, honestly, because we don't care about it. I would say change this to be 0s across the board in there. We don't ever want them using that periscope. It's so very irritating when they do. Let's give them 8s to stand by that. Let's give them 6s to stand by power. Scheduling, as far as that goes, I don't really care when they sleep and when they don't. So that's fine. For your officer taskings, this is where, again, this is just my style of play. I don't really want anybody doing anything. I never want the skipper doing that, for first and foremost. Mr. Hagnow is fine to jump on that whenever he wants. I don't ever want him playing cards unless I tell him to. Mr. Oldor, fixing things is good. Engines are good. Great. Mr. Watcher, fixing things is good. We're going to switch around these values. I prefer this. And let's turn that down to a 5. Actually, let's make that a 0. I just don't want him doing it at all. Mr. Osterman, he's fine to just jump on the radio. We also want to get rid of Mr. Hagnow's cooking. I don't really care about the discipline. I will handle that when I want to handle that. So this is how I play. If one of your officers ever gets out of bed and starts doing something you don't ever want them doing, because if I put them to bed, that's where I want them to be. I want them to rest up and stay rested until I need them. So the way I play, if any of your officers jumps up and does anything and you did not want him doing that, just navigate here to your tasks and get rid of that. Just make it go away. Because at least then they're not going to do that, right? As far as scheduling goes, I don't bother. I don't bother touching it. I will wake them up when I want them to be awake, and I will put them to sleep when I think they should sleep. Yeah, it's more of a micromanaging style, but that's the way I do it. The only thing that I would consider changing is this, getting rid of the periscope use altogether because it's garbage and I hate it, and giving them some priority to the valves and the power. I might actually even switch those. It's more important for me for someone to run to the vents when I need them to run to the vents, or turn off the gyroscope when I need that turned off, as opposed to running to the valves. In a really bad scenario, I'll be probably working the valves myself anyway. So yeah, that's the salted way of doing it. That's, again, everything I've just talked about is the absolute basics. Your mileage may vary. It really depends on how you like to play the game. Do you want to just, navigate out to the hunting grounds and that's it? And you don't want to do anything until you find a torpedo solution? scenario, great, no worries. You can use the management, set it up the way you want it to be set up. There are tons of other videos out there that tell you what some people believe is the most optimum way of running your crew, and it might be for them. I don't know what it would be for you, so I'm not going to bother trying to get into that. So yeah, that's management in a nutshell. If there was something you would have preferred I touched on a little deeper, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. All of my social media can be found down in the description of each video and of course on my UBoat page. Until next time, I have been Lightly Salted. Thanks for tuning in. Bye now.